And now let's go with our second and last session of the day with Guto Requena. Guto is a Brazilian architect who creates projects through the use of digital technologies, guided by sustainability, aiming to offer innovative and effective experiences. From products to interiors, buildings, master plans, and interactive installations, please welcome Guto Requena.
Hello, everyone. So good to be here. Thank you so much, Rafaela. Daniela, it's nice to see you. It's an honor to be here today. I know it's been a busy and intense week with incredible content coming from all over the world. So I hope everybody who joined this beautiful seminar had lots of good content and had insights, because I think one of the most important things for us as a community is reflect on the future, reflect on our position as architects, as designers, as urbanists, as creatives who are in charge of rethinking and redesigning the surface of the planet. So much responsibility, so much doubt, so many crises. I have to deal with my crisis as well. So it's good that we have this space, and Architecture Hunter has been a wonderful platform for all of us to connect us, to inspire us, and to promote the discussion. So it's truly an honor to be here. I hope you have an incredible audience. I'm sure we do. So I'm Guto. I'm from São Paulo. Let me start sharing my, let's see. Okay, here we are. Is everybody watching? Is that good? Can you see it? Yes. Okay,
Yes.
so thank you. So we have this amazing idea of provoking all of us to rethink what is disruptive design and how can we break some paradigms in architecture. So my studio is based in São Paulo. This is a short video I'm gonna play while I tell you a little bit more who I am. So I'm from the countryside city of São Paulo. I was very lucky to be raised basically in a farm with lots of animals, lots of nature, lots of organic food, because we produced fruits, we had milk from the cow. It was a very, very fortunate childhood. And I studied architecture, and I've been part of a researching group called Nomads. I was at University of São Paulo for almost 10 years between my graduation and then my master. And as part of Nomads USP, this laboratory, as a researcher, I had the opportunity back in the early 2000s to start reflecting about the impacts of new digital technologies into architecture. And remember, beginning of early 2000, everything was happening. It was the beginning of digital media. It was the beginning of social network. It was my first email. So in one hand, I had this very traditional modernist architecture to study coming from Brazil. This is quite of a heavy weight we have to carry. You all must know, I mean, even when you see some contemporary architecture coming from Brazil, mostly of them will be very modernist. Now it's changing. And that kind of architecture didn't resonate with me because I was so fascinated with what's starting to happening concerning new technologies, interaction, hybrid spaces, kinetic architecture, the use of sensors and hardwares. So for almost 10 years as part of a researching group at Nomads, I was able to research and travel and start my own research on the field. And then in 2008, I finally started my own practice as an architect. So I founded Estúdio Guto Requena. And since then, my main passion has been investigating how digital technologies are reshaping the way we live, are reshaping the way we experience architecture. But I'm gonna come back a little bit, or maybe a lot, before starting to show some of my projects. Recently, in the recent years, I would say especially in the past 10 years, I finally understood the importance of decolonizing architecture, decolonizing our thoughts, because there are so many more other possibilities, and how important to me, and I think for the future of the planet, is to see the world from different perspectives. So as an architect, raised and educated in Brazil, my entire education as an architect and as a human being has been the Eurocentric one. So mostly what defines this idea of the Eurocentric world is binary, monotheism, patriarchy, white society, and a very colonial view of the planet. So most of the architects I've been studying my entire life as an architect comes from the North Global, comes from this very Eurocentric view of the planet. Finally, recently, we've been introduced to the incredible knowledge of the indigenous people coming from Brazil, where almost 60% of the population is Black. I'm finally being introduced to incredible Black architects, architects coming from Africa, Afro-Brazilian architects. So in the past years, I've been very curious and fascinated to finally discover what's happening concerning innovation that comes from the South Global. Why we know so little about the South Global? So in this research, this is a good example about how these people from Kasi in India, they've been educating the roots of trees to create infrastructure for this village. So this is a totally incredible way of communing with nature. And this is, of course, one of the most important heritage that indigenous people taught us. So decolonizing the way we see the world. This is a image for an artist from Brazil, Maré de Matos, that is written neither discovery nor conquest, because this is how we learn in history about Brazil. We learn that Brazil was discovered, that Brazil were conquered by the Portuguese, by the European. And of course, that's not true. So just to give you an example, this is a recent image that was discovered last year, and it's changing our perspective about the pre-colonial Amazon. So with this new technology of laser scanning from airplanes, they started this incredible project that is scanning the Amazon forest. So far, they scanned only 2% of this huge Amazon, and they already found incredible discoveries. So these are one image from one of these incredible discoveries. This is the equatorial Amazon. And they've discovered through this scanning that there was a city there hidden in the forest, a city that is more than 2,105 years old before Christ. The city had around 30,000 people living there. So guys, can you imagine 30,000 people organized in the middle of the forest as a community, as a big city? That's a urban development. Just to have an idea, during the Roman times, London had 30,000 people. This is really recent. So can you imagine coming back to 2,500 years before Christ and having a city like that? So how much we have to discover from this knowledge, from this cosmovision of the planet, from this communing way with nature. They were so sophisticated that they didn't leave anything back. There is no ruins, there is nothing, because the entire city basically is biodegraded. It was biodegradable. So together with that, I think it's also very important, this notion that some of us could be a little bit afraid, some of us are fascinated. I think we have to have a very critical vision, because this is what is happening. This is the reality. We are the first cyborg generation. We are the very first cyborg generation for many reasons. First, because our organic body, our flesh, our meat is being connected with technologies. with prostheses. We are a very prosthetic generation, the very first kind in human history, in the recent human history, right? Because we are here for a glimpse of an eye. We are here for a second. The history of the planet is much longer, as we all know. So we are using different types of prostheses to augment the reality, to expand our sense of humanity. If you think about a mechanical heart that solves a problem with your own heart, or if you think of the different kind of prostheses, like the hands, and if you have a car accident and you can replace your legs with a very sophisticated prosthesis that nowadays can even have the feedback with your brain. These new prostheses can tell your brain if the place you're walking in is wet, is hot, is cold. So there is finally a feedback with the brain. We are prosthetic because we are using submarines to bring the body in the deep of the ocean where we couldn't go by ourselves. We are using prostheses as a telescope that allows my eye to go to the star, or a microscope that allows my eye to come inside my own body. So everything is changing concerning how we feel, how we see ourselves, how we manage being human beings. Our cognition is in replacement and it's changing. So there is no way back. And of course, we are facing very critic and very strong and very horrible things as well. But we have to manage. This is happening. So it's in our own hands. And then the big question comes. So in the end, what it means being human nowadays? So what is all this technology doing with your brain? From this technology, what can we use to shape a better city, to shape a better society? And I think it's fascinating because it's all there. And I've been hacking sensors and hardwares, and I've been trying to integrate it into my architecture, because to me nowadays, as important as the concrete, as the glass, as the stones, as this concrete materiality that I use in my buildings, as important as that is also combining this with neurosensors, Arduino, microcontrollers, LED lights. So there is this network of a digital materiality that I think is creating a new kind of architecture. And I think this is all related to a new possibility of seeing the world, or seeing the world through different lenses, not only the Eurocentric one, but being able and be open to discover more that is coming from the South Global, the incredible, sophisticated innovation that is coming from the South Global. There is something that connects us in the South Global, especially Latin America, India, and Africa, which is the innovation that is also connected to spirituality, to nature, and the most important, with community, with the collectivity. So I'm going to finish this first part and I go to the projects. And I want to finish with this notion of empathy. But how empathy is connected to architecture. So this is my big obsession for 20 years now. This is what my PhD is about. I'm starting a PhD soon, hopefully. And I had incredible architects, professors during my graduation and my master at University of São Paulo. But never, not even one professor or architect invited me, instigated me to reflect about the power of empathy in public spaces and in architecture. So we know that the way we design change the perception of ourselves, change the perception of each other. We know the power of the forms, the shapes, the colors, the materials, the technology. To why not improve empathy? This is my big thesis. This is what I believe. And I think if you want to talk about the future of the planet concerning climate chaos, emergence situations that we're living now concerning the climate change, empathy is probably one of the most important, especially nowadays with everything that we are watching. So this is Estúdio Guto Requena. I'm very excited to have an incredible team. I have lots of incredible collaborators here in São Paulo. My studio is divided in 4 different units of research and projects. So the first one is architecture, which is the biggest one. This is where we do master plan, interior design, architecture, scenography. We also do this product design, especially 3D printed, biodegradable, open source product design. I love communication. So here in Brazil, I've been creating TV shows for 15 years now, because I truly believe the power of communication in democratizing notions of architecture. Unfortunately, here in my country and in so many other countries, architecture is seen in the majority of the people as something unreachable, something for rich people. And we must change that. And I think communicating it in TV, in streamings, online is an incredible opportunity for us to democratize architecture, because architecture is about solving problems. We are all problem solvers. So we should communicate it in a more authentic, in a more democratic, in a bigger way. Okay, hold on. Someone wants to say hello. Hi, this is Amalia Rodriguez, my dog. She wants to participate. So the other unity is called Juntos. This is the laboratory for the studies of empathy, design, and technology. So this is where I hire programmers, software engineering, hardware engineers, computer scientists, neuroscientists, psychologists, different kinds of engineers. And together, we creatively create we create interactive projects, apps, technologies, interactive facades, and I'm excited to show you some of them. So I'm going to show you very briefly 3 projects that I'm very proud. They took a lot of energy and love from our team. And I think they prove something that I believe is truly part of the architectural process, which is having this multidisciplinary team. So having, in the very first moment of the project, not only architects, not only designers, but bringing together in the creative table, psychologists, neuroscientists, engineers, and the people from technology, especially computer scientists. So the projects I'm going to show you here are examples of a very intense, fruitful methodology that I developed here, that I bring all these people together from the very moment of the discussion about the project. So this is Dolce Gusto Neo. It's a new product from Dolce Gusto that they decided to launch first in Brazil, which is basically a biodegradable pod for coffee. I'm sure many of us who are watching this talk loves coffee. And we know that the aluminum pod is the most incredible coffee you can have. But we all know that only 3% is being recycled globally. So this is it's another big trash that we are creating. So Dolce Gusto Neo tried to create something that is biodegradable. Actually, they did. So the very first thing I asked them is, send me a compost so I can try to compost and check if it's truly biodegradable, and it was. So I said yes to this project, and they invited me to create a flagship to host the first store globally. And then we did other small projects for them with the same concept. But I'm going to show you here how we managed this and what we created. So I was inspired by the coffee flower, because I never saw before, and it has 5 petals. So from that, we started this using the computer to generate this shape, which is basically very inspired by the idea of a temple, something that would invite us to give a little shot in what is possible in the future concerning architecture, which is the 3D printed architecture. So basically, this is a little temple, a 3D printed architecture, the first first one like this in South America, which is 3D printed in biodegradable material. So this is all bio-based material. So this cute architecture was also totally rounded and circle. It was implemented in a park, in a public park. And the architecture itself invited this intervention to gather people together in this circular shape. It has 5 entrances, so it's very democratic concerning the circulation and the flux. And there is this window in the ceiling that allows this very poetic light to come in. That's why I say that it's almost like a temple. We use lots of plants. I've been experimenting with biophilia. You can see here, this is my house. And I've been investigating how to use lots of plants inside and outside. And of course, I'm very lucky because I'm in Brazil. Everything grows fast here. So São Paulo is a very concrete city. There's a lot of concrete buildings. There's not much green. So we should improve this green into our projects. This is something I truly believe. So you can see the 3D printed shape of it, the material, the surface, which I think is also very poetic. And what happened is that after 2 years, it was a temporary architecture. So after 2 years, we are able, and this video is going to show you this, we were able to biodegrade it. So this video shows what happened with the architecture, and it opens the questions. What if all the architecture we are doing could be done by using biodegradable materials? Again, there is nothing new about that. The indigenous people were doing that. The communities in Africa were doing that. There were many learning from that we got to know as architects. Unfortunately, I didn't have any of that during my graduation as an architect. And I know it's changing, but it's still very slow. Why we keep using concrete in so many buildings? We should press, and how we should press the constructions and the technologies to create something that is truly decarbonized. Using timberwood, for example. We've been designing with timberwood in all our recent projects. I'm curious about using bamboo, about earth, but combining all of this with these new technologies. This is a project that is very playful. It's called the Dancing Pavilion. So this project, I was invited by a big beer brand to create a space inside the Olympic Park in Rio de Janeiro during the Olympics in 2016. And I love designing clubs. So I'm designing now my 11th club. I love designing club because I think clubs and nightlife clubs are safe spaces and has been safe spaces for the queer community, my community, for so long. And these are places that we live outside some of the problems. And for a couple of hours, we are safe and we can dance and we can relax and we can meet friends. So I love designing clubs, but this club was very different. This is Rio de Janeiro. This is Olympic Games. I shouldn't do something that is dark. So I proposed to the client, what if we do something that brings the sunlight into the dance floor? And what if we create a skin in this architecture that is reactive, that transforms itself concerning what's happening in the inside? So what happened is that inside the dance floor, we used different types of sensors that collects in real time if people are clapping their hands, if they're singing, if they're dancing more or less. So we basically are able to map the emotions in the dance floor, mapping the emotions of the inside architecture. And then the entire architecture itself responds to it with this kinetic system that I created. So this is motors, they rotate individually and they are mirrored inside. So they can, during the day, they can bring the sun inside, and during the night, they bring the inside lights to the outside. So you can see through the images, it was pure magic. And this is architecture. People are screaming, people are happy, people are joyful. Of course, if you give some beer and if you put some good Brazilian funk, It's gonna make everything looks better. But you can see here what a success it was. And it was a very exciting project to prove my thesis that using sensors and activators and creating this hybrid architecture can indeed create a new type of experience collectively. So this is my last project that I'm going to show you guys here. This is called Mapped Empathy. This is one of a series of installations that I've been doing in different in different shapes and different sites, experimenting this idea that what if we use sensors, technology with design to foster empathy. So this is a small temporary architecture, a small pavilion that was originally created to be in the streets. But I was invited for SESC. SESC is a very important cultural institution that we have all over Brazil. And it's a very democratic institution. It's free to access, and there's a huge diversity inside the institution. So it's almost like you were in a public space. So I decided to try this project that I had in my mind for a while. So it's all CNC cutted, it's parametric architecture, which I'm also fascinated. And it's basically a place that you can sit. So it could be in a park, it could be in a public space. So this little architecture gives you shadow and invites you to sit, maybe to wait for the bus, maybe to just sit in a park. But what happened is that inside the bench, there are sensors. And once you sit in the bench, you can plug your finger into the heartbeat sensor that collects in real time your heartbeat. So the lights beats real time with your heartbeat. And there is a generative music that is lively created through the heartbeat. So you can listen your own heartbeat, which is something very powerful. If you that are watching this talk already did this kind of medical exam where you can listen your own heartbeat, or for the mothers that are watching me right now, that were able to listen their babies in the belly heartbeats. This is something astonishing that reminds us that in the end, we are all here, we're all alive, we're all connected. We are all part of the same thing. So these experiments that I've been doing for almost 10 years now has been showing me that people get really emotional in this kind of experience. After that, they start talking, they hug each other. I saw people crying. I saw new friendship coming. I saw new lovers coming. And to me, this is the big power of architecture. If we can use design, architecture, and technology to improve affection, I think we will be able to manage what's about to come, what is happening already concerning climate emergency. So affection, empathy should be taught in architectural schools. We should invite our students to, once they are creating a new building, a new urbanistic project, a new design, not only to think about the materiality, the flux, the shape, where it's going to be, but also add this notion of affection, of empathy. Why not? So I'm curious to hear more about the questions and give a little talk with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this brief presentation. Here is my contacts. So if you want to reach me, if you don't come up now with some questions, you can also reach me. Thank you.
Thank you, Guto, for this very inspiring and important presentation. It's also very special to us seeing you talk about the flagship Dolce Gusto project because it won the Architecture Hunter Awards in the sustainability category. So we are now opening the Q&A session. So if you have any questions for Guto, feel free to send them in now. Our journalist from Architecture Hunter, Daniela Silva, will be leading the conversation.
I see you have a biophilic home somehow, Rafael, as well, right? I mean, it's so
Yes,
good. It makes such a difference, right? And especially in Brazil,
right?
that it grows so
Yes.
fast. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guto, for your amazing presentation. I have to admit that I've been obsessed with your work for the last couple of years. So it's an amazing opportunity for me to finally chat with you one-to-one and to be
Thank you
able
so
to
much,
do
Daniela.
a couple of questions. I think it's really important what you've been doing um, for our profession, but for humans in general to create awareness of these topics. And uh, for me, it's really touching to see your projects, how simple things, as you were just mentioning about the heartbeat, how these simple things are so powerful. And the way that you connect design with these simple things, it's really amazing. So I'm
Thank
really
you.
happy that your work is getting to people and so to start this Q&A, the first question I would like to ask you, it's a broader question. So your work often challenges the traditional architectural boundaries. So my question is, how do you define disruptive design, and how is this manifested in your projects?
Thank you, Daniela. I'm also a big fan of yours and how important is the journalism and the critic in architecture nowadays. I'm a big fan of this democratization of information. I love that people post and everybody can be a critic and they can talk about architecture, but we are also facing a very dangerous moment, which is the amazing magazines going down and journalists have to change areas. So I know how important it is to have critics and incredible journalists as yourself. So keep doing that because I've been watching. Uh,
Thank
I
you.
love when you said about simple things because I think in the end is all about that, Daniela. And I think this is something that I've been learning from these recent studies on decolonization. And I
Mhm.
think this is a notion that we have a lot to learn coming again from South Global, from Latin America, and of course, myself coming from Brazil. I'll give you an example. Uh, uh, I've been traveling and I've been teaching around. I'm a professor at Sorbonne. I've been visiting many great international schools in all the continents for the past 10 years, 15 years. And I was lucky to visit really incredible laboratories of technologies, 3D printers and incredible CNCs and all these beautiful and incredible and fascinating machines and robots that are reshaping architecture. Somehow for us in Brazil and for other countries that are under development, we don't have all this technology available, but we have other technologies available. And there is something about the simplicity is that sometimes when I create a project, it happened more than once. People writing me and say, "Oh my God, what is this 3D printer? Or what is amazing technology?" And it is so simple because I think we learned to do extraordinary things with ordinary. And this is a very important notion for the future. And this is the best notion we can learn as well from originary people. They didn't have all this technology, but the level of sophistication concerning community, concerning architecture, concerning the integration with nature, concerning empathy are huge. So for me nowadays, disruptive design is absolutely connected with emotions. And it's interesting to talk about that right now because we just watched the new president in the US, Donald Trump. We've been watching what is happening, and this is the opposite of empathy. And this is very dangerous because we are facing climate emergency or climate chaos that is already happening. So this is why I've been almost like an activist. I like to see myself as an activist of love. It can sound a little bit cheesy, but again, this is basic humanity. So I had a performance called The Love Project that I've been doing for 20 years now. I've been traveling around. I asked people a very simple question. Narrate a big love story of your life. And I put this person uh, in privacy in a chamber. Nobody listened to it. I plug sensors in their body. And I'm only interested in the data, in this bio data that is generated while this person is is emotional, and then I 3D print it in different shapes. So doing that, I've been seeing this most basic human notion, which is love, being manifested. And I saw very tough people crying. I saw women, I saw men, I saw kids all over the world. So again, this is disruptive. It's not about the most sophisticated robot from Boston Dynamics that I do love, and I'm passionate about these robots, but it's not about that, right? So I think disruptive design is slowing down a little bit and taking a bigger look into what is being doing in the past through these originary narratives, this cosmovision of the planet. And I think there are incredible architecture coming from that, from incredible architects that are trying to reconnect with nature and that are trying to 3D print with bio-based material, or are trying to investigate solutions that are based and commune with nature. So to me, this is super disruptive.
Amazing, thank you. And talking a bit about the integration of technology and emotion that is very unique in your work. Your designs blend this technology with human emotion. And you were saying earlier that none of your tutors or teachers refer even to the emotions, right, for the project. So I'm curious, what inspired this approach in your practice, and how do you see it transforming user experiences in architectural spaces?
Very nice question, Daniela. Thank you. So I think it all started in my childhood. You know, I was a very lucky kid. I'm the only kid. I don't have brothers or sisters. So I had to spend lots of time in the nature by myself, and I quite loved it. No, I was lucky. There were some horses in the land. I could hire horses. I was play in the lake by myself. I fished. And it's fun to tell it because I'm also now very technological, very urban. You know, I love big cities, I love big metropolis, but I think I never lost this little Guto connected with the nature. And I think that, you know, for every kid that has the opportunity to be close to the nature, might have a special sensibility towards these questions. I've been to very tough stuff in my life, you know, coming from Brazil. Violence is something present in our daily lives, not only in Brazil, but maybe most of the countries. And it's part of who we are, and it's part of who I am. And I've been to really violent stuff. I lost my father in a horrible assassination, gunshotted. I've been kidnapped myself. And you can just walk around and you hear these horrible, crazy stories that happens here and there. You turn on the TV and you face what's going on. So in one hand, I have to be in these very traumatized situations. But in the other hand, I think it only made me stronger, and it only made me realize what really matters. So I started thinking, okay, now that I grew up, I'm 45 now, I lost my father more than 20 years ago. Of course, took a lot of therapy, a lot of talk, you know, a long healing process that is still going on. But it made me realize all this stuff and what really matters. So now I reflect that maybe, you know, this obsession with empathy, with love, with basic human emotions might come from all of that. You know, so when I did my very first project using the sensors and these feedback sensors, and I was able to collect heartbeats or collect sweat, or now using face recognition to map emotions. And I've been very curious about how can we integrate that with architecture. And as the user experience, right, as the experience of our clients, I've been noticing that people get really emotional, you know, when they can hear their heartbeats, or when there is an output, a light or something that happens when they touch their hands or when they look to each other. I think in the end, what I want is inviting people through architecture to look into each other's eyes, to smile, you know, to be curious to know who the other person is. And this is the most beautiful notion about public spaces. And we know that we are losing it a little bit for the phones. And I'm a little bit terrified because I've been invited to do this urban installations for a long time. But since COVID came, I see that most of the brands, the big brands where the money is, they're investing here. They're investing more and more in the digital, and they're investing less and less in the city, in public spaces. So this is something that is really frightening. There's so much money coming. Why are these big companies not investing anymore in public spaces, in art, in technology, in public art, in festivals in the street? Of course, there's still things happening, but I think this is a big opportunity for us architects to work. So I'm excited with possibilities that are coming with AI and with the robotics, but also combining that with all the knowledge and the learning that is now coming from, again, the originary people, and this notion of that the future is ancestral, right? For many of the African people, time is something not linear, and I've been learning that, and I'm fascinated by that. So for many of them, time is like a circular or like a spiral. It's the past, the future, and the past, and that's it, and that's how it goes. So there is this very important philosopher, writer, activist, indigenous person in Brazil, Ailton Krenak, and he says the future is ancestral. And I think we should be learning about that in all the architectural schools. The future is ancestral. This is the only way for us, in my opinion, to survive in the future.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a great perspective of the time and how we can learn from our past. And picking up on what you were saying about the emerging new technologies and looking towards the future of interactive design. And since these technologies continue to evolve, how do you envision the future of interactive design and responsive architecture?
Good, Daniela. So this is what I'm pursuing in this PhD. I just applied this PhD in some universities. I'm hoping some of them will accept me. But what I want to do is exactly this. How can we collaborate with these new digital technologies, this new intelligence? It is a new kind of intelligence. We are frightened by this intelligence. We are afraid, but it's happening. And I think we can also understand that is an opportunity. So I think the future might be a lot involved with this new kind of intelligence, with the AI, and how we can not use AI, but commune with AI. Combine our intelligence with this new kind of intelligence, with the intelligence that comes from the nature. There is so much to learn from the nature. We are a multi-species planet. Humankind is here for such a little time. I've been fascinated about studying plants and trees and how they communicate to each other, and how they save each other, and how they create these most amazing ways of surviving, of procreating, of occupying the places. They are moving, they're changing, they are here for so much longer than us. They have a different timing. They're very smart. I would say they're smarter than us. So I think, and I'm very curious again, and quite excited about how AI, nature, and our intelligence, how can we combine this? So I see I know it's going to be super challenge. I don't want to sound super optimistic, but I'm also not a pessimist. I try to be as critic as possible, but I think there are this new architecture combining both. So we've been seeing incredible biodegradable new materials. We've been seeing very new types of green buildings, robotic technologies to rapidly construct emergency architecture. So I think AI and these new technologies combined with this knowledge that we have to learn, that we have to rescue and save from the forests and from the originary people and from the South Global, if we are smart enough to pay attention on that, I think there is something really amazing and innovative, truly innovative coming from there. That's why, again, I'm forcing this because this is something new for me. I would say 10 years that I've been discovering. And I mean, and everybody that is watching us, I was very excited because I had something from India talking about disruptive design. Guys, take a look in what's happening in the South Global. There are incredible architecture coming, incredible philosophers, incredible artists. There are new ways of seeing the world. And I think we should every day think about decolonization. It's about seeing the world through different perspectives. And so I've been touching this point over and over because I have to do this with myself because it's just easy to keep the way things are. And it's time for a change. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And keeping with that thought of the future and how things are evolving, I will pick one of the questions that our audience wrote for you that I think it follows the same logic that someone said, Guto, how do you perceive the evolution of interactivity in urban spaces, especially in cities like São Paulo, where the sensory experience can be so diverse and chaotic?
Yes. So, yeah, this is a notion that people have from Brazil. Indeed, there is lots of diversity. Indeed, São Paulo is pure chaos. And I think there is something effortless cool about this in Brazil. But we are also one of the most racist countries in the planet. Our society is separated by the color of the skin. It's a very homophobic and queerphobic society, while we are the society that consumes the biggest trans pornography in internet on the planet. So indeed, we are a society of so many layers. So not sure if I'm answering this question properly, but I think the notion of using these technologies, especially in public spaces, and this is what I want to investigate in my PhD, is a way of foster and improve these notions that people can talk to each other and we can face this in a different way. I mean, street is important. It's super important because it's in the streets and in public spaces that I have to face what is different from myself. It's in the street that I have to face different religions, different types of people, different nations. So exploring public spaces, exploring the collectivity, it's something major. And I'm curious to use technology to improve that. So if there are people watching us from Europe, for example, might be a little bit more challenging to understand what I'm saying because in Europe, most of the life is outside. People go outside, there are parks. It's more than safer. But in Brazil and in Latin America, we had this huge industry of fear, which is one of the industry that makes more money in the industry. So the industry of fear told us for decades that shopping malls are safe spaces, that having bulletproof cars are important, that living in private condominiums with high guards and high security are important. But in the end, we know that the more we've been denying public spaces and the more we've been denying the street, the city got more violent. So something really interesting is happening in South America and in Brazil and in São Paulo, especially from 2010, 2013, which is people reoccupying the streets. We started the manifestations again, the demonstrations. People started occupying. We've seen incredible crowdfunding for public parties in the street, for things happening outside. So I think this is a moment very interesting as well because we have everything happening together. So my excitement with technology and architecture is that there are new opportunities for us. Architecture is much bigger, much wider than we study in architecture in the university. And I think this is very instigating.
Thank you. Thank you for that, for sharing that. Okay, so we are running out of time, so I will pick one more question. It's the last one. Okay, how can we make sustainable architecture more accessible and not just a luxury for those who already have access to it?
Excellent question. I think this is the big question. Of course, when we have something luxury historically, this type of luxury architecture or luxury design or luxury fashion, it end up inspiring more and more people. When we have the money to experiment with something that is very expensive, but it end up in something that is socially important, you know, history showed us that this thing ends up being reproduced and it gets cheaper and it gets more democratic. So what I think is that we should, as architects, research sustainable companies, sustainable products, use them. Because I always think, for example, when I did the Dolce Gusto flagship, it took 1 year to find, you know, the producers, to find the constructors, to find the materials. And I love this notion that when we do a project, we are doing this, we are provoking the entire industry. So to create that little architecture, I have to hire educational programs. We have to hire crazy entrepreneurs who put their money to buy these very expensive machines, and they are still doesn't know how to use it. So when we create an innovative project, we are helping the entire industry around it, the entire ecosystem of sustainability around it, of innovation. So I think one of the instruments we have to make this sustainable projects more accessible is really searching for the producers, you know, really using their work and really using their products and really making it bigger, because we are giving the money for the right persons and avoiding some of the other products. So this might be one chance.
Yeah, and a bit our responsibility as architects as well. Guto, thank you so much for your generosity, for sharing your experience. This was such an incredible session. I'm super happy I had the honor to moderate this conversation with you. Good luck with the PhD. I'm pretty sure a lot of universities will accept you and they will be lucky to have you there. So
Thank you,
I will keep
Daniela.
an eye. I'm curious to see the update and how that evolves. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Daniela, and thank you for everybody who watched us. And thank you, Architecture Hunting, for promoting this meeting. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Guto, for accepting our invitation as well. And thank you for answering all of our audience's questions. Thank you all for being here today. And a special thanks to our incredible speakers for sharing their insights and inspiring us with their work. We truly appreciate everyone who stayed with us until now. It's been an enriching discussion, and we hope you found it valuable. Today marks the final day of our webinar week, and it has been incredibly important for us. We sincerely appreciate everyone who joined and participated. We'd also love to hear your feedback. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this is just the start of our new initiative to host monthly webinars. So we have many more insightful and meaningful discussions ahead. We also want to make a special mention of the Hosting Foundation, one of the key partners that believed in us and play a crucial role in making this week possible. Their support has been truly invaluable. Their 2025 awards, offering a total prize of $1 million, are closing soon. If you're working on an innovative sustainable design project, don't miss this incredible opportunity. Submit your entry by February 11. And once again, all sessions have been recorded and will be available on our website at the beginning of next week. So for those who want to rewatch or catch up on any sessions from earlier this week, everything will be accessible soon. So thank you all for being a part of this, and see you soon.